Hey Simon, everybody else who may be interested in this. Simon did a video this morning talking about a specific case where a former Nazi camp person has been found and identified as someone that did some bad things, apparently. He's 90 plus years old. And then Simon talked about the death penalty and his views on that, which I respect. As far as the case of that guy goes, I think at the very least he deserves to stand trial, at the very least. Now, whether they find him innocent, guilty, whether they sentence him to, time served or suspended sentence or home arrest or whatever they determine his punishment should be, that's the court's decision. But at the very least, he should stand trial. And, arguments could be made, well, maybe this guy lived a good life after that. Maybe he did some good positive things. He's old. He's almost dead anyway. And my view on that is, well, the people whose lives he ended didn't do good things for the rest of their life, didn't live a good life, didn't get to grow old. So I see zero justice at all in just saying, yeah, he's not worth the effort because he's so old. I don't see that benefiting society in any way. I mentioned this in the comments, there's a book that was written and I've now forgotten the title of it, but it's in your comments, in your video. It was about a World War II police unit. They were just police officers in Germany. Who were transferred to Poland after 1939. And circumstances turned these people who were formerly police officers, who upheld the law, who looked out for society, etc., who did all the good things that police officers are supposed to do, turned them into a group of mass murdering, psychotic individuals. And the book goes into quite a bit of detail about how that occurred. And it wasn't that they were forced to do it, go do it, or we're going to kill you. They voluntarily changed who they were. Most of them, not all of them. And became this band of mass murderers. They were responsible for the deaths of who knows how many people, I can't remember. But a significant number. Hundreds, thousands, I don't remember the exact number. But the basic theme of the book is how good men can do bad things or become bad men. And I heard one commentator talking about that book, and he said, when we read this, we shouldn't read it from a standpoint of history. Oh, this happened to those guys. We should read it from the standpoint of ourselves. That could be you. That could be me. And it's absolutely true. If we were put in a situation, a horrific situation that those guys were put into, we'd all like to believe that we would be the one that said no. But out of this large group of men, very few found themselves in that position. And even those went along with it in order to, I guess, not be killed themselves. I mean, it varied from person to person, but even the ones that didn't do anything, by the mere fact that they didn't do anything about it, were just as culpable. And I say that, I bring that up because when it gets right down to it, it doesn't matter what good you've done. When it comes to justice, it matters what bad you've done. When you go before a judge or a jury, they're not judging you on the good aspects of your life and the positive things you've done. Those things can come into play, but you're not there to tell how good you are. You're there to prove your innocence or guilt over what you've been charged with. And that should be the primary, it should be the only thing. I know circumstances come up when they're dealing with sentencing sometimes, extenuating circumstances and things like that. But if you've done a crime, you should be tried for that crime. Death penalty, I'm for it, without question. There was a guy. Let me read you something, because my thoughts on this, I couldn't put into the words that this guy did. This was written by a psychology professor. And one of your commenters on that video said he was against the death penalty because it reeks of vengeance. So there's a difference between revenge or vengeance and justice. There's an absolute difference. This guy goes into, yes, some of this is generalizations, and sometimes it doesn't apply, sometimes it does. There can be special circumstances, etc. But when he gets down into the meat of the article, he says revenge is predominantly emotional. Justice is primarily rational. Revenge is mostly about acting out markedly negative emotions. At its worst, it expresses a hot, overwhelming desire for bloodshed. As perverse as it may seem, there's actual pleasure experienced in causing others to suffer for the hurt that they've caused the avenger or the perceived victim. Justice, as logically, legally, and ethically defined, isn't really about getting even or experiencing a spiteful joy in retaliation. Instead, it's about righting a wrong that most members of society, as opposed to simply the alleged victim, would agree is morally culpable. And the presumably unbiased or unemotional moral rightness of such justice is based on cultural or community standards of fairness and equity, whereas revenge has a certain selfish quality to it. Justice is selfless in that it relies on non-self-interested established law. And then he says revenge is by nature personal. Justice is impersonal, impartial, and both a social and legal phenomenon. And he talks about that, but I'm just going to read the highlights there. Revenge is an act of vindictiveness, justice of vindication. The intense effort to avenge oneself or others can easily become corrupting morally, reducing the avenger status to that of the perpetrator. That's something you hear said a lot. Well, if we take his life, we're no better than him. No, if you go out and take someone's life or exact revenge on something, you're no better than him. But if society does it, it's a different animal. And I strongly agree with that. Let's see what it says here. Okay, it says justice. In opposition, justice is grounded in assumptions, conventions, and doctrines having to do with honor, fairness, and virtue. Its purpose really isn't vindictive. That is, bloodthirstiness has no part, or should have no part, in precepts of justice, at least not in the way the term is presently employed. It's based on established law, and its proceedings are designed to dispense to individuals precisely what is deserved, nothing more, nothing less. Revenge, number 4, is about cycles. Justice is about closure. Revenge has a way of relentlessly repeating itself. Hatfields and McCoys. You did this, I'm going to do this. Well, you did this, then I've got to do this. And it just escalates and escalates. There's no end to it until someone's life is taken in most instances, or in a lot of instances, I would say. It's malicious. Revenge typically begets more revenge. Whether it's an individual or an entire nation, it takes place within a closed system that seems able to feed off of itself indefinitely. There is no end. Justice, in contrast, is designed by individuals or officials generally not linked to the two opposing camps to offer a resolution far more likely to eventuate in closure, especially if in fact it is just or equitable. Revenge is about retaliation. Justice is about restoring balance. So I think he had some good words to say on that. And that's a pretty long article. I only read the highlights of most of it. But I think the guy kind of knows what he's talking about. Or at least I agree with what he says. I'll put it that way. And I mean, when you think about justice as opposed to revenge, there's a lot of cases that stick out in my mind, but one, was it Norway? A few years ago, the guy killed 70, 72, something like that, students at a summer camp, and he received a 21-year sentence in a minimum security, maximum comfort prison. And he's been so bold as to sue the prison system multiple times because his color TV wasn't good enough, or he didn't have enough channels on his cable, or he wanted better food. And in most instances, he won those battles. 21 years. That equates to 70 people, if it were just 70 people, to 3 months. 3-month sentence in a hotel, practically, for taking someone's life. Is that justice? I would offer that the families of those victims don't find any closure whatsoever in that man's prison sentence. And there's a significant chance, based upon the things that guy has said, that when he gets out 15, 16 years from now, whenever it may be, that he'll probably do the same thing again, because he was psychotic. Absolutely. He was a psychopath. There are instances where justice is meted out to an innocent person. And I used to think it would be better if 100 people were accused of a crime and we convicted all of them to the death penalty, and we killed all 100 of them. One of those was innocent. My position was that would be worse than if we let all 100 of them go. And my opinion has flipped on that. It would be a terrible tragedy, and there have been many instances of it, but in my opinion, not nearly enough. There's no number that you can quantify what's good, what's bad. There haven't been a significant amount of those to where we should change our justice system to allow those 99 other ones to walk away from some horrific crime. That's just the way I feel about it. It would be terrible if someone accused me of something and I was put to death when I didn't do it. That would be a tragedy, absolutely. But it would be more terrible for society if 99 people did something horrible and they got a 3-month sentence for taking someone's life. I can't wrap my head around the differences in those two things enough to come to a point where I would think the opposite would be better. And I know some people disagree with that, and that's fine. But I think when a lot of people talk about the death sentence, they get wrapped up in that justice versus vengeance argument. And it shouldn't be applied because they're two completely different things. When a state carries out a death penalty, there's nobody sitting up on Capitol Hill going, yeah, we got him. Now I can sleep at night because whatever. There may be. But overall, the justice system has no feelings in that respect, nor should it. So, yeah, bad things happen, mistakes get made, but overall, if we don't have the justice system in place to deal with things like that, I think if you don't mete out a punishment like that, I think it acts in some ways as an absolute breakdown of the justice system. If you're not going to mete out what I believe is a deserved punishment for that, then you might as well not punish rapists, thieves, domestic abusers, whatever. We punish. Here in the States, there are people in jail, and you can argue the validity of this. There are people in jail for far longer than 3 months for stealing someone's car, or for knocking someone's teeth out, or whatever. And to think that there's a justice system out there that thinks 3 months is worth a life is ludicrous, in my opinion. Anyway, I told you that a VR would be coming because I could never type all that into the comment box. So there you go. Some of my thoughts on it. Feel free to banter back and forth. I'm always interested in opposing opinions or like opinions or whatever. But anyway, there you go. I'm going to go finish this pipe. Take care.